Shalom, my brothers and sisters. I wanted to make a video that would help to guide you to an understanding about who you are and who you are not. Okay? You're not a Jew. You are a Hebrew. To be a Jew would mean one of two things. Either you were a descendant from the line of Judah, or you were from the land of Judea, which is supposed to encompass the tribe of Judah. So you are not Jew, you are not Jewish. However, since you are a child of the Most High and of the chosen people, the Torah is written on your heart. It does not mean that you read the Torah. It means that you are a child of the Most High. So that would make you an Israelite. Okay? First, I want to start off by showing you a map. Too many of my people are stuck on this stupid thing that we're all from Africa, and we must be African, and our people must be African, and Adam and Eve must have been African, and the cradle of civilization started in Africa. I don't know why they beat you with that. Maybe it's a way of getting you confused. But I'm going to show you, first of all, what I have here is a map. What you see in front of us is a map. This is a map of the Middle East. This is Africa. This is the Middle East. Okay. Let me see. Go over here, and I'm going to show you. You see how that's Africa right there. This, which borders Africa, is actually Israel. This is Israel, way down in here. Let me see if I can blow that up. That would be this area right here. Now, while I have this map up, I'm going to show you. I think I'm going to show you on this map. Maybe not. Anyway, while I have this map up, also, the three sons of Noah would be Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And these are the lands that they occupied, excuse me, and formed their tribes. This would be the land of Ham, which would encompass Africa, and this part of the Middle East. And then there's Shem, that took up this area here, and Japheth, that took up Europe. Okay, so I got that out the way. This photo here better demonstrates where the Garden of Eden is. Let me see. That would be right here. So you got Chaldea here, Assyria, Egypt is over here, the Promised Land or Israel here. This section here, all of this actually, everything that you see that's green and yellow, this would be considered the Garden of Eden, which is right off the Persian, between Euphrates and the Tigris, where the three rivers meet is right here. And this is the Persian Gulf. So this would be Iran on this side over here, and this would be Iraq on this side over here. Okay, first we're going to go back to the original 3 or 4 men after the Great Flood, which started the BCE time frame, which would have been Noah, Japheth, Shem, and Ham. Okay, when we go back to the map, okay, and we notice the land or the area that makes up the three sons. Again, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. So I'm going to give you a little history on the three of those, and the nations that they created. Okay, switch over to this system here. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The three sons of Noah represent the three great races of mankind. The above map shows on the table of God's dispersion of the nations after they migrated from the Tower of Babel. So this was after the migration of the Tower of Babel. Okay, the above map shows the table of, okay, I already said that. Shem, the first one, represents Asia. Okay, yeah, because they even called it Asia Minor before the first Assyrian invasion. The five great nations that came out of that were the Persians, or the Elam, Ashur, which are the Assyrians, Arphax, which are the Babylonians, Lud, which are the Lydians, Aram, which are the Syrians, the Ham nations that traversed or took up Africa, or most of it, because come on now, but most of it would be the four nations that came out of that would be Cush, or the Ethiopians. Oh, by the way, that was the original name for Africa before they changed it to Africa. And Egypt, of course, was not Egypt. My gosh, it escapes me at the moment. And I know there's plenty of people out there that know. Kemet, there it is. The ancient name for Egypt was Kemet. Okay, now back to the four tribes. Cush, the Ethiopians, Mizraim, which are the Egyptians, or Kemet, Comitians, Phut, which are the Libyans, Canaan, which of course are the Canaanites. Japheth contributed to 7 nations. Gomer, which are the Sumerians, the Magog, which are the Scythians, Scythians, okay, Javan, which make up the Greeks, Tabul makes up the Turks, Meshech make up the Slavs, Tiras makes up the Etruscans. Now that's Japheth. Up in Europe, up here, Japheth, Shem, Ham. Once again, Israel is here. It's not in Africa. It's here. And the great paradise, Garden of Eden, is here. None of this, the cradle, the civilization of life, all that cradle stuff, none of it happened here. All of it happened here. This is it right here. This is the cradle of civilization. Knowing that our people come in such a varied color. I mean, we just hit the spectrum when it comes to our people. Really? Because you were doing it before. Okay. Anyway, we hit the spectrum. We follow. We carry every color as long as there is melanin involved. You are a Hebrew. If you have any black in you at all, you know that black mixed with any color is black. So when you get to the white people or the Caucasians, they look a little different. And there is an explanation for it, because they are not descendants of the tribe of Israel. They are Caucasian. They are from the Caucasus Mountains. I have a theory on that, but I'm going to go through a few things before I get there. I'm first going to introduce you to a video that I've entitled Giants. I don't know what the original title of the video was. I just took a clip from it, and it's going to explain to you about okay, well, we could start off with Genesis 6:2, which explains, now it came about when the men began to multiply on the face of the land, the daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves whomever they chose. Okay, and the next scripture that supports this is the Genesis 6:4, which suggests the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards. So now, even after the flood, the Nephilim were still on the earth in those days. Excuse me. So we know that some of them survived. I think they went underground. There are some who suggest they left the ground, went other places. I'm okay with that because there are documents in Enoch which suggest flying machines. Excuse me. And so I'm okay with that. But I'm thinking that they went underground. There's also the second book of Enoch, which is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, also talks about a Nephilim that came out of the ground after that. Maybe we'll go into that someday. That would be very interesting. But the Nephilim were on earth in those days and also afterwards, when the sons of God went into the daughters of human and had children by them. Those were heroes of old, men of renown. So whenever you hear the tales of the Greek mythology or any of the Assyrian or Egyptian or any Coptic or ancient Hebrew or Greek philosophy at all that includes any giants or deities or half God, half men, all of those stories came from some place. We call them fairy tales today, or some form of science fiction, or whatever you want to call it. They all have their hint of truth. They all originated from someplace. And the Bible tells you that there were giants, there were Nephilim, there were half God, half men on the planet. I'm going to hook you up with a video now that I really like. This video clip, as soon as I figure out where I put the darn video clip stuff. Anyway, let's go right to the clip.
Giant skeletons that were found in the Ohio and Pennsylvania Valley. I'm talking everything from 10 to 12 foot tall guys found in copper armor. And the more I investigated, I found out it was a worldwide situation where we're talking some really big skeletons, all the way up to 36 feet tall.
If we only had basketball then, huh?
Well, I can tell you this, when some of these guys, some of the British giants, for instance, one guy specifically, listen to this, a guy by the name of William Joyce in the late 1800s, he could lift a ton dead weight, in other words, 2,000 pounds. And you're only talking about a guy that was 8 feet tall. So I think the situation that most people find in history is there are too many question marks. And when you're looking at the temples of the world, and you're looking at all of the, what would you say, the answers that are out there that seemingly are, swept under the rug, I think it becomes apparent that for some reason, someone doesn't want the issue of giants brought up, and that's why I spent 3 decades dealing with it. And as you know, the book has got on the front cover a British explorer with 2 12-foot giants from Kashmir standing over him. Now, again, this was in the late 1890s, and as early as 1970, in the jungles of the Amazon, there have been actual reports of people running into very shy natives who are in excess of 9 feet tall.
How tall do you think the little guy is in the middle on your cover of your book, Genesis 6?
According to they claim he's right at 6 feet. When I got that from the a group of people in London that have the only photos of these guys around. Also in the book, I have a picture of a 12'2" Irish mummy, and it's fascinating because later in the show we can get into the mummy issue. But the point that's fascinating is if you take guys that are all the way up to 36 feet tall, 20 feet tall. The Emperor of China had two 15-foot guards. Charlemagne himself was surrounded by rather large individuals. We have a Roman emperor named Maximinus who was a giant himself. His wife's bracelet, George, would fit around his thumb. We're talking about people that are, we're talking about people with big egos, big appetites, and incredible strength. We're not talking about the medical situation that you see sometimes on the History Channel where they show giants as being these guys that don't live very long, obviously like Andre the Giant, who was a wrestler.
Right.
We're talking about guys with unbelievable strength, unbelievable knowledge, and unbelievable wisdom. On the website, I even show some of the Incan kings, I-N-C-A-N, Inca, from the Inca Empire, basically in the museums of Peru, that have 4 to 5 times the cranial mass of a standard human skull. So we're not only talking about big guys, we're talking about people with incredible intelligence, and we're talking about an answer that obviously classical anthropology and archaeology, these guys don't want to deal with this. I think it was David Hatcher Childress that coined the word Smithsonian Gate. In other words, a cover-up of history that's rather pronounced. And when you begin to dig, as I began digging over 30 years ago, you can find out that the reports of newspapers in America, of newspapers around the world. Interestingly enough, after I did the last show with Art, somebody went on the website and they sent me from Eastern Europe, they've already sponsored I guess you'd say an undertaking to go into some of the caves where they found a whole, basically, cavern of giant skeletons. And in the New Ancient American, which is a magazine that's put out in America, they found the most contemporary find it someplace in desert Southwest, and it actually shows the pictures of the giants, shows the cave, etc. So basically, interestingly enough, too, is that when you look at this, you see that there is a very, very, how should I say, skittish archaeological base out there that doesn't even want to deal with this.
Well, do you think, Stephen, that these giants were regular offsprings of people, or that they popped up in a very unusual way, depending on the percent of population at the time?
Well, first of all, I believe that the reason I use Genesis 6, let me read this and then I'll comment.
All right.
Genesis 6, 1, 2, and 6 are kind of interesting because it gets into the whole alien, the whole Nephilim, the whole Zechariah, Sitchin, Anunnaki, but let me read it. It says this: "And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives, all of which they chose. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children unto them, the same became the mighty men which are of old, men of renown." Now, there are two opposing viewpoints on this. During about the 4th century A.D., the Catholic Church basically said, well, no, these were the sons of Seth, and the sons of Seth married the daughters of Cain, and out of good men marrying bad women came giants. We're talking about men, George, that had 6 fingers, 6 toes, and double sets of teeth. Now, that's kind of interesting because all through the digs in North America, especially in Catalina in California, Lompoc, where there's a prison in California, they found red-haired giants, 10 to 12 feet tall, double sets of teeth, 6 fingers, 6 toes. You go to South America, and the Mayan god Shambhalum had 6 fingers, 6 toes. And so I believe there is a supernatural element, and then you've got writers who claim that we were created by the aliens, the Anunnaki, and I obviously I don't believe that. I believe that all the myths of history center around this one thing.
All right, all you skeptics, there you have it. You have plenty of visual evidence that they exist. Now, you can kick this around the court all you want to, sit around and discuss how everything in it is a hoax, is made up, is photoshopped. You know what? You're going to believe what you want to believe. That's sad, but it's true. If you can't keep an open mind, you will never know what's really going on around you. Anyway, okay, now that talks about the men of old, the men of renown, the giants of the Bible, but it doesn't really tell you about the other aspect of it, the genetically modified man and woman. Those are the Caucasians I was talking about. Now, my theory is that the Assyrians, excuse me, back somewhere around, I don't know, third, maybe fourth dynasty, when the Assyrians, the Sumerians, the Akkadians came on the scene. I mean, the Sumerians came with their own language. Off the rip, there is no other language on the planet that's anything like the Sumerian language. Now, of course, every other language has traces of ancient Hebrew. Every other language, because it was the absolute first language. But the Sumerians, they've got their own thing going. So it's my theory that the sons of God got with the Sumerians and they started editing the tree of life. Let me see if I can find something on that for you. Okay, these are some Assyrians standing around the tree. I can't even explain to you why they have half bird wing with legs, and I can't because I wasn't there. But this is the representation of the tree of life. So we have plenty images which depict this in their culture. And this is stuff found all around Iraq. This is the stuff that ISIS was destroying when they were over there tearing up the temples and things over in Iraq. The stuff that people got really upset over. But I think I have an idea about why they did what they did. Because Iran and Iraq were a part of Babylon. And Babylon was invaded and overtaken by Syria twice. And then the last invasion was Persian, when they got rid of the Assyrians. But heck, by then it was too late. They had forgotten their own culture. But these are various symbols. This right here is supposed to be it's supposed to represent the pineal gland in the back of your head, which does all kind of wonderful and miraculous things to the human body. But this is the tree that they groom. And it's a representation of the tree of life, and this is what I believe they used to create man, or create a type of man. And I think the first type of man that was created was the Caucasian, and they were sent to the Caucasus Mountains because they were escaping persecution. You see, before them there were no white men. There were albinos. We knew the difference between an albino and a white person. Noah was an albino, but there were no white people. And in order for them to assimilate into this society, they had to really work to create a man that had melanin. It was really difficult, I guess, to get the melanin perspective. But I think this right here is a depiction of an early tree. And this is even earlier still. And this is a full-grown tree. It's got the flower budding, and then it's got the rising phoenix, or the nation of Assyria symbol. That's their state seal. But anyway, the Caucasians had to remain in hiding in the Caucasus Mountains until it was safe for them to come out of the Caucasus Mountains. You can't just come out being white and not expect to be persecuted. Anyway, let's move on to the latest round of videos, which comes in the form of UFO and alien type crap. Now what they're doing is they are actually incorporating their history, as far as I'm concerned. Now look past the aliens and the spaceships, because we got plenty of documentations in ancient history too where we talk about spaceships. They've got Vermanas written up in text in the Bhagavad Gita in India. So we're talking about stuff that's thousands of years old. So again, keep an open mind. But I'm not even focusing on the spacecraft. Or the aliens. If you change the aliens over to, say, the Nephilim, or the original people that were here when it talks about the in the Bible when the Most High tells uh, the first man to go forth and replenish the earth, suggesting that there was something here before and now we're having to redo it all over again. And this was in Genesis 1 and I don't know 17, something like that. But there were people here before Adam and Eve and before what we know as original man, and there were Nephilim on the earth in those days before the flood, and there were Nephilim on the earth in those days after the flood. So not everyone is children of Ahia. But what they do is they're you know what, I'm going to show you. I'm just going to take you to the video and show you what I'm talking about. Here we go.
All over the world, we're seeing evidence of these ancient wars took place. They took place in Greece, they took place in Norse mythology, all throughout Mesoamerican symbolism. And consistently, what we're seeing is some sort of battle for control over the earth.
When you look at many of these ancient tales, it would seem to be that the gods are warring amongst themselves over us.
This lends to an intriguing possibility that we are the descendants of the winners, and that there are certain groups that are pushing for us and really rallying because, in fact, we are their direct descendants. They created us through some sort of genetic engineering. And then there's other factions that want to wipe us off the face of the earth completely, and those wars may still be being fought right now. And there's other
Are humans the descendants of a race of alien beings whose home planet was destroyed thousands of years ago? Might the ancient stories of warring gods really be accounts of separate extraterrestrial factions that were fighting for control of the Earth and may still be fighting for it today? Perhaps further clues can be found by examining accounts of modern day.
You see, what they're trying to do is express their concerns about their God, which is the God that we call bad, and the destruction of all that they've created. You know, this earth is Satan's domain. So anything that marks the history of what the Assyrians did during those BCE years, they're under attack. All of the temples, all of the structures, anything that was a reminder of that place. And I think that the other nations, other countries that are aware, more aware of what's going on in this world than we are, because we're too wrapped up in the Grammys and sports and trying to get that more money and better job and pay these bills and get this credit card and buy this house. And we're too wrapped up in ourselves to see what's really going on. But those countries that are considered to be third world countries or countries with less than what we have, they see it. They know exactly what's happening. And they're preparing. We're going to be caught way off guard because we have no idea what's going on. But that's why ISIS was tearing down the temples, the Assyrian temples in Iraq, in Mosul. And I'm a little afraid. I'm concerned.
Northern Iraq. 20 miles south of Mosul lies the ancient Assyrian capital city of Nimrud. Built over 3,000 years ago, In the 13th century BC, the site is an archaeological treasure trove. Among the antiquities found here are monumental statues of winged lions with human heads and massive relief carvings depicting the ancient gods of Mesopotamia. But on March 6, 2015, militants from the Islamic State stormed the ancient site, violently destroying everything in their path. After obliterating irreplaceable relics, they wired the entire site with explosives and leveled it completely, forever wiping it from the face of the earth.
This group seems to be more destructive than just about anything people can recall in history. It's almost as if we're being orphaned from our past. We are having our parentage, our ancestors cut off from us, the record of them.
It is absolutely barbaric what is going on currently in the Middle East, with some factions going deliberately to ancient sites and just eradicating our cultural heritage.
Chuck Messler gives you a real good idea about what has happened in the past, based on scripture and current events. And I'm going to let him break it down for you. This is only a small portion of a very large video, so I just took out what I thought was relevant.
I've heard about cloning lately. What's that got to do with the Bible? You say, is there genetic manipulation in the Bible? Yes. In fact, you will not understand most of the Old Testament unless you really understand who the Rephiim really were. Few controls. We're tampering with the human genome. Has this happened before? Yes. In Genesis 6. And also after that, Genesis 6 warns us with the Rephiim and so forth. The days of Noah that Jesus talks about, the days of Noah, or so shall the days of the coming of the Son of Man be. What were the days of Noah like? And what did Daniel mean when he talked about the miry clay? It's been there all along. I've never noticed it. In verse 43 of Daniel 2, we'll take a look at that. And what implications might have this for some of the strange goings-on we see in Revelation and elsewhere. Genesis chapter 6, the first two verses are a single sentence. Everybody misses that. Genesis 6, verse 1 and 2 are a single sentence. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the Benai Ha-Elohim, the sons of God, a term used exclusively for angels in the Old Testament, saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Weird goings on. Notice these are the same sentence that avoids a lot of other errors. Benai Ha-Elohim, it is always used of angels, and it's in Job and other places. In the book of Enoch, which is useful for grammar and vocabulary of the period. The Septuagint, the translation of the Old Testament into the highly precise Greek, 3 centuries before Christ was born, clearly identifies this term as angels. A few verses later explains what the results were. There were Nephilim in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them, the same became the mighty men which were of old, men of renown. I thought angels had no sex. That's not what the scripture says. It says the angels in heaven don't marry. It's a different statement altogether. I won't get into that here. We'll keep moving. The Nephilim, it comes from the word the fallen ones, from the verb nephal, to be fall, to be cast down, to fall away, to desert. Nephilim are the fallen ones. These are the hybrids. This was Satan's strategy to corrupt the human race to prevent a Messiah. Yes, they were giants, but in the Septuagint, the word was translated gigantes, which is transliterated giants in the English. They were giants, but that's not what the word means. It means earthborn. In the Hebrew, in the Old Testament, we find a similar term called the Rephaim. Sometimes translated giants in your English, sometimes translated dead. You might appropriately call them, if you look at all the verses and put it together, the living dead. Strange creatures. Why did God tell Joshua to wipe out every man, woman, and child of certain tribes? Because they had a gene pool problem. One of the things that brought about the flood of Noah was a gene pool problem. In Genesis 6 verse 9, it tells us one of the distinctives of Noah was that he was a just man and he was perfect in his generations. And the word there is tamim, which means without blemish, sound, healthful, without spot, unimpaired. It's used of physical blemishes. And, well, we'll keep moving. Jesus, in his prophetic discourse, his confidential briefing to his 4 disciples in Matthew 24, said, "But as the days of Noah were, so shall the days of the coming of the Son of Man be." Now, what he may have meant is simply that it was business as usual until they entered the ark. Many scholars would see it that way. But others who have studied this carefully also feel he was saying something more than that. And so it's interesting that the classical view of Genesis 6, what's called the angel view, these are fallen angels bent on mischief, was the view of all the ancient rabbis. It was the view of the early church up until the 5th century. But in the 5th century emerges an alternative view because it was a little less spooky and a little more comfortable. It's called the lines of Seth. And that is the view that's taught in most seminaries today. The tragedy is it has absolutely no scriptural support. The fallen angel view is the view of the ancient scholars, Hebrew scholars, the view of the early church. It prevails among conservative scholarship today, and it's confirmed in the New Testament in Jude and 2 Peter. What's also interesting is that same concept is embodied in the ancient legends of virtually every ancient culture on the planet Earth. In Sumer, Assyria, Egypt, Incas, the Mayan, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Persia, Greece, India. The Greek Titans and all that are all echoes of the same kind of shenanigans way back in the mystery early chapters of Genesis. The Sioux Indians, we could go on and on. When you talk about Hercules or Atlas of the Greek mythology, you're talking about what the Hebrews would call Nephilim, the unnatural hybrids of this stuff. Now, let's just zip through this. I won't beat a dead horse here. The early church fathers held that view. Modern scholarship also holds that view. The Sethite view is easily shredded from the text. But what startled me when we researched this has, not only does it confirm the New Testament, you won't understand most of the passages in the Old Testament unless you really understand what I call the angel view. Things that happened after the flood and occur in prophecy. Satan has you can look at the Bible as Satan's strategies to corrupt the human line to prevent a Messiah. In Genesis 6 we've talked about, as God tells Abraham he's going to work through Abraham, now Satan can focus. When he tells Abraham his people return to Canaan in 400 years, Satan had 400 years to lay down a minefield. And whether you talk about the destruction of the nation, whether you talk about Pharaoh's pursuit subsequently in Exodus 14, and so when God says, I'm going to work through David, David's singled out for special treatment. Satan the more we have, more prophetic visibility we have, the more Satan can focus his stratagems. And the population of Canaan, we have the post-flood of Nephilim. That's mentioned in Genesis 6. It happened also after that, after the flood. And they're encountered in Canaan when Moses sent the 12 spies. They came back in Numbers 13:33. It says, they're Nephilim in the land, these fallen ones. And we are like grasshoppers before them. We're pretty hard on those 10 guys. Remember that Og, the king of the giants, was 13 feet tall. Think about going up against a warrior like that. The serious problems. The Rephaim, these were a race of giants, except they're more than just giants. We encounter them in Genesis 14:15 and following. The Moabites called them the Emim. The Ammonites called them the Zamzumim. There's others. The same term is also translated dead. Isaiah tells us that they're not eligible for resurrection. Strange thing. We have Arba and Anak and his 7 sons, the Anakim. We have Og, the king of Bashan, in Deuteronomy 3, and so on. It's interesting that Joshua is told to wipe out every man, woman, and child of those tribes. He does almost. But the places that he fails to do so, in the Golan Heights, in Gaza, Ashdod, and so forth, it's the places that the PLO have their conclaves today. Strangely, strange stuff. And Goliath and his 4 brothers. We took a 4x4 up in the Golan Heights. There is a monument up there that's sort of like a Stonehenge called Gilgal Rephaim. It's never been excavated. We know very little about it. What's strange is you can only tell what it is from the air. It's about 5 circles, 20-ton stones, dated about 3000 BC. It's on a flat plateau, only visible from the air, about 10 miles. And there's a number of these that have never been excavated, never been studied yet. But, and the Anakim are just an example where Joshua is told to wiped them out. But verse 22 says, there was none of Anakim left in the land of the children of Israel. Only in Gaza and Gath and Ashdod there remained. I think that's interesting. Kingdom of Og, in the kingdom of Bashan, which reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei, there remained of the remnant of the giants, that is, the word giants there is actually the word Rephaim. For these did Moses smite and cast them out. Bashan was the final region of these Rephaim. And the king of Bashan had an iron bed 9 cubits long. That's somewhere between 13 and 16 feet, depending what cubit you use. There's a strange passage I haven't had anyone explain to me in Psalm 22, which reads as if it's by Jesus Christ as he hung on the cross. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? And so on. Verse 12, apparently, if you visualize Jesus saying this, he says, the bulls of Bashan have encircled me. What on earth does that mean? I have no idea, but I think it warrants some very serious research. And of course Isaiah indicates that they, the Rephaim, shall not live, they are deceased, they shall not rise. Therefore thou hast visited and destroyed them and made their memory to perish, and so forth. There's a passage in Daniel, most of us are familiar with Daniel 2, Nebuchadnezzar's polymetallic image, the gold, silver, brass, iron mixed with clay, you all know that. In Daniel 7 there's another vision given to Daniel directly, different idioms used but the same subject, basically the sequence of empires. Babylon, Persia, Greece, and then Rome in 2 phases. Most of you have studied this. But I want to focus on something strange, and that's this iron mixed with clay. What on earth does that mean? Now, for many decades, I, like most conservative Bible scholars, have taught that clay is people. You're the potter, I'm the clay. It's an idiom. It's actually in Aramaic. It's miry clay. Daniel explains the miry clay. Now, miry clay is clay made from mire, or is dust. Dust is usually synonymous, idiomatically, with death. Whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, Daniel switches to a personal pronoun, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. The grammar here requires that the they have to be something other than the seed of men, or it doesn't make sense.
Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for me. I'm going to let you get back to your day. I want to thank Ahaya, Bahashem Messiah, our rock, for the strength and guidance. And I ask that you take care. And let the Spirit of the Most High guide you through your consciousness. Anyway, be on the lookout for my other videos when they come, and I really hope to hear back from you one way or the other, either on Facebook or YouTube. Like the video, share it, tell somebody, make a friend. Peace.
Hero Israel, the Lord our power is one power. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4. Shema Yasharala Ahaya, Alahaya Nawa Ahaya Akan. The Lord our God is one. Shema Yasharala Ahaya, Alahaya Nawa Ahaya Akan. The Lord our God is one. Shema Yasharala Ahaya, Alahaya Nawa Ahaya Akan. The Lord our God is one. Shema Yasharala Ahaya, Alahaya Nawa Ahaya Akan. The Lord our God is one. Shema Yasharala, all praise to Ahaya, the Most High power, forgiving his laws, his statute, commandments, and he ain't have to do what he did. Better take heed, cause you're running out of time. Don't wanna be the one with a reprobate mind. What would I do if I had his truth? I'd probably go crazy, praising him on a daily. The Most High save me.